And welcome back to the channel where we talk about only good comics. I'm Brant, and this is Friday First. This is that series where we talk about those brand new number one issues, new character debuts, new story arcs, and the like. And this is for books that are coming out on September 11th, 2024. So this is going to be a smaller show. There's not as many firsts coming out next week as there have been in recent weeks. So don't have a whole lot of books to talk about. I think I have 8 books, ranked books, no honorable mentions, no shout outs this week. I only got to read 3 of the books from last week so far. And then I've got a small list of other most anticipated as well. So let's just dive right into all of this. So the first book that I'm going to talk about is a Black Label DC book, which is Plastic Man No More, issue number 1. And this is kind of a take on Plastic Man, where the thing that happened to him that made him into Plastic Man, this polymer, kind of the chemicals that he fell into and everything, over time, they start to break down, and he starts dying, basically. And he's got a kid in this reality who's grown, also has his powers, and now he's worried about his son. So that's the gist of it. That was kind of in the description of the book. The interesting thing about the way this story is told, it does go back to the very beginning when he was the eel, but then it fast forward, I think it's like 20 years, to where he is already a hero and part of the Justice League and all of that. So we don't spend a whole lot of time in the past, but we do see what happened to him. He's involved in a robbery that's botched. He goes to prison, escapes, yada yada. The story. But the interesting thing about this, and I don't know if you've ever seen the show, I think it's an AMC show. I just started watching it on Netflix. It's called Kevin Can F Himself. And it's the way that show is shot is very interesting because it's both a sitcom and a drama, but not in the traditional sense. So when the focus is on the husband in that show, it's a sitcom. And everything is like, canned laughter, all that stuff. The camera, the lighting and everything is very different. But when he goes out of the room and it's from the perspective of the wife, the lighting goes very dim, very moody, and it becomes like a drama. And there's no canned laughter, there's no humor at all. It's just a straight up drama. And so it's really clever, inventive way to kind of show 2 perspectives going on in the same space. And this book kind of does that in a way. Whereas when Plastic Man is alone, it's very dramatic, very serious. And when he's with the Justice League, it's like the old like Super Friends cartoon, and everything's bright and cheery. And every time he tries to talk, they just kind of laugh and say, "Oh, you're too much. You're hilarious," and all this stuff. And the whole time, Plastic Man is trying to get through and trying to be very serious and tell them something really wrong is happening, but nobody listens to him. So it's very interesting that this book does the same thing that show does. So if you're a fan of that show, you'll be a fan of this book. I don't think it quite hit as hard in this book as it does in that show. So, but I mean, we're talking about colorful spandex wearing superheroes, so kind of get that there might be a little disconnect there. But I still think it was pretty well done. And the first issue was interesting. It was better than I expected it was going to be. It did. I don't know if it hooked me quite enough to continue because it's a Black Label book. It's not in continuity. It's all those factors, and it's a character that I don't like. I don't have an attachment to. But I did really like the format of it, and I like what they're doing with it. So it's going to be like based on the week and how many books I have that week, whether I continue reading it. But I did enjoy it. So. Next up, we have Minor Arcana, issue 1. This is by Jeff Lemire, Boom Studios. And this is about a woman whose mother is a psychic in a very small town where everybody knows each other, but she becomes ill. The daughter comes home to take care of her mom, but ends up having to take care of the business as well. And supposedly learns that things aren't as fake as she thinks they are. For me, this book didn't quite hit all the notes that it needed to hit. and I was left confused at times by the art and what was actually happening. Especially at the end, I was really confused how the issue ended and what exactly happened here, and I didn't really get that feeling that something supernatural was going on, more so than she's having a struggle, within herself of um, kind of where her life's headed and what's going on with her life, and maybe some traumatic experiences and that kind of thing. That's more of what I got out of it. I didn't really get that supernatural vibe out of it at all. Um, Most of the time, the art was pretty good and the expressions were nice, but there were a couple of panels where the faces didn't say what their emotion was trying to say to me. Not quite. Um, so while it was decent and it was very relatable, the story of her and her mom not really seeing eye to eye, kind of getting under each other's skin, her escaping a small town to live life in the big city and doesn't go as she had hoped or planned, and all kinds of attachments back at home. All that stuff is very relatable, um, and which is something Jeff Lemire does very well. So a lot of positives for the book. It just didn't go as far as I was hoping it would go. So I don't know if I'm the audience for it, and so I don't know that I'm going to continue with it. And lastly, Exceptional X-Men issue 1. Um, this has been talked about a lot since before Wednesday, before it came out. I don't know if people got their hands on it early or what was going on, but there was all kinds of talk about this book, and I still am confused what the complaints were over this book, and it was much ado about nothing, in my opinion. I thought this was a really strong issue. Kitty has been through a lot. When we last saw her during the fall of Krakoa and all of that, she had turned to a darker place, had become like this assassin basically. She was brutal and violent, and now she is trying to pick up the pieces of her life and try to figure out what the next step is. She's taken a step back from all that. She's working in a bar again, and she's just kind of taking every day as it comes and just trying to live a normal life, but keeps getting pulled back into it one way or another, and she just can't fight like her purpose in life, I guess, which is to help people. And that's her ultimate thing, is to help people, protect people, that kind of thing. And no matter how much she tries to run from it, that is who she is. And that's kind of the impression you get throughout this issue. It is very boiled down, not a whole lot of action. There is some, and we meet some interesting characters in this book. And we get a little bit of a tease of Emma, who's seemingly trying to put a team together herself. And we got Kitty like I said, trying to avoid all that life and trying to live a life, but not succeeding. More so, she's become kind of a shut-in, and is kind of just messing up at every turn because she's fighting her destiny or whatever it is. Fighting that purpose that she feels deep down that she just kind of needed a break from after how violent things turned during all that stuff. So I thought the art was pretty strong here, very expressive. I don't know, I just it was a kind of a peek into Kitty's life and her thought process and what was going on with her. And throughout this issue, we had a journey from that dark, confusing place to a little bit of, yeah, I guess this is where I need to be. You know, so I thought it was very well written, very well paced. I really had no issues with this book at all. I thought it was pretty spot on. So did it blow me away? No, but was it a solid solid issue and a good story with interesting characters and good dialogue, all of that stuff, all those elements that make a good story? Yes. So, and it's a first issue as well. So I thought it had a decent balance of stuff. I like where it's headed. I love Kitty and I love Emma. And so I thought this was a really good issue. So I'm going to continue reading. All right, so that is all the recaps from last week. So let's get into the books for next week. All right, first up is Geiger number 6 from Image Comics Ghost Machine. I'm including this because it's an epilogue, and it's a story about the two-headed wolf Barney, who had some things happen to him last issue. So this is kind of an in-between arcs issue that is focusing on the singular character. So I thought it kind of fit in the first, because it's kind of a transitional issue, if you will. So yeah, that's basically all this issue is about. It's kind of just doing a spotlight on Barney, which was a beloved character, and a best friend to Geiger throughout, the previous run of this book and this run, and didn't quite get a fair shake with the electrician last issue. So yeah, I thought it was worth mentioning here. And because of how good Geiger normally is, I'm going to give this one a promisingly good. And if you were a fan of Barney, then you'll really enjoy this one as well. Next, we have Midst, the Valorous Farmer, number 1 from Dark Horse. As you may recall, I did a previous Midst one-shot, and this seems to be another one. It says, in the trust can make or break you. So we know that the Midst is this kind of place that exists between, like, in the middle of these two planes of existence, and in that midst, in the fold, is like this dark, twisted place where bad things happen. So this I don't know, I don't say world, but like this island, this plot of land, whatever it is, kind of exists in between these two parts, and it bleeds into that fold. So it's a dangerous place to live, but at the same time, it's kind of a cool place because it's in between these other two. So anyway, this one is about the Hildebrand, who has run this family farm alone for a long time. They're way far away from other neighbors, but then these disasters start hitting, and they have to take desperate measures. And one of these disasters isn't done, and it's everything in their life starts to unravel and all this stuff. So it sounded interesting. I liked the first one. I don't know for 100% sure I'm going to pick it up, just because it was like the last one I read. It was like I enjoyed it, but I was kind of glad it was a one shot. I didn't know if I needed more of that or not. But I did want to call it out for anybody that read the previous one and enjoyed it. Again, for me, with books like this, it's always like if the week is kind of a smaller week for me, I might pick up a book like this that I enjoyed one of before. But this week is I think it's a little heavier for me. I'd have to look again, but I think it was a pretty decent week, so I don't know that I will pick this up. But at the same time, I'm going to give it a potentially good, just because I did enjoy the other Myth story that I read. So I know that's very convoluted, my reasoning there, but it is what it is, and that's how I kind of go about these things. So, but if you enjoyed it, if you like this world, you might enjoy this as well. So check it out. Next up is another book from Dark Horse. This is called Summer Shadows. Issue 1 takes place on a Greek island, the island of Avengers. And this guy is looking for his ex, the love of his life. Doesn't know why he left, but he's so stuck on that he just can't move on. He's got to get some answers, got to get some closure. This Coast Guard is on the trail of another missing person on the island, and they've both fallen into this this just jet black super yacht called the Nyx before vanishing. And so this missing mystery begins on this mysterious island. So it's all mysterious, and all kinds of crazy stuff. And this jet black yacht kind of leads you to believe it, especially called Nyx, and on the Greek Isles, it kind of lends itself to supernatural, maybe even with like celestial beings or gods in that realm is what it kind of gives me the impression of when you're talking about the Greek Isles, and Nyx, I believe, is a um, I know it's a figure in some mythologies. I can't remember if it's in Greek or not. I think it is. So that would kind of make sense if we're going there, going into mythology and stuff. So I don't know. It sounded pretty interesting to me, and I am going to give it a potentially good. And yeah, I'll probably try this one out and see what I think of it. I think the cover art looks pretty good. I don't know if the interior artist drew the cover or not. Let's see. Yeah. So it's the same art that's going to be on the interior. That looks like pretty art to me. So I'll definitely give it a shot. Next up is a new book from Distillery called Time Waits, issue number 1. And this is a 4-issue miniseries. And this is by Chip Zdarsky, Marcus Toe, and the David brothers. And it is it's kind of a sci-fi adventure with time travel and stuff. You have uh, this person named Blue, who is trapped in the past, um, and which is our present. So he's from the future, I guess. So if that's not confusing already, he was sent back in time for a mission, and he couldn't complete the mission. For morality's sake, or for love's sake, or whatever the case may be. Find someone to spend time with. They spend 10 years together. They're about to adopt, and then these overlords from the future come back to find this deserter that didn't complete their mission and kind of right those wrongs, right? So it's one of those kind of things where he's running from his mission, but now that his past is caught up to him, but which is actually his future. So very confusing and convoluted. This is an $8.99 book that is magazine size, like all this distillery books. So for me, if I do try this, I'm probably going to wait until the digital edition becomes available. They don't typically put them out at the same time, but they do put them out. I'm on their newsletter mailing list, and I get updates when their digital releases happen. So if I do try this one, I'll probably try the first issue digital and kind of go from there. But the concept is interesting. I like Chip Zdarsky. I like Marcus Toe's art quite a bit. Marcus Toe did the cover art as well. David Brothers. It's not the David Brothers. It's David Brothers. I'm not familiar with David Brothers. I apologize for that. But anyway, Marcus Toe did a lot of stuff for Aspen years ago, so I'm a big fan of Marcus Toe's art style. I love Chip Zdarsky, so I probably will give this a shot, and I am going to give this one a promisingly good, just because that combination, and I like sci-fi mystery time travel adventures at times, especially when it's by a good creative team. So yeah, check it out if you are a Distillery fan, if you're a Chip Zdarsky fan, if you're a Marcus Toe fan, or if you just like sci-fi adventure stories. Next up is Dead Eyes, The Empty Frames, issue number 1. This is from Image Comics, and this has been a long time coming, another mini-series. Dead Eyes is a book that Kat, Mike, and myself talked about a while back when that came out. We really enjoyed that series at the time. It's been a long time, so I don't quite remember everything, but the team is Jerry Duggan and John McCrae. So very solid creative team here. It says the world's most unkillable comic is out of hiding and back stomping around Boston. So in this time, Dead Eyes, who is a kind of a masked vigilante, has picked up a clue as the locations of the paintings swiped in the largest private art heist in America. Can he take down the score while avoiding the cops and the mafia? So he's caught in between those two forces. And yeah, if it's as good as the previous one, it's going to be a solid read. Looking forward to jumping back into Deadeye's world. So I am giving this one a promisingly good based on what I've read before. If you've not checked out Deadeyes before, you should, because it was pretty good. Next up, we have Venom War Wolverine, issue number 1. Wolverine is bonded to a mindless symbiote hungry for flesh, it says here. So basically, we're taking the zombie Wolverine concept and mixing it with a symbiote and throwing it into the main Marvel universe is what we're doing here. So that's interesting. He's got to avoid this infection and uh, return to a dark place in his past to kind of defeat that. And it's a horror story by the writing team from Local Man. So if you are a fan of the writing style of Local Man, that is Tim Seeley and Tony Fleeks. And we've got Kev Walker on art. So that is intriguing alone to me. I am a fan of the Local Man series. So I'm giving this one a potentially good. Um, and we'll check it out. I wasn't sure if I was going to pick this up until I saw who the creative team was, and then I was like, okay, yeah, I got to try this because I've been trying to weed my Venom War content down, but they keep pulling me back in with new twists. Speaking of Wolverine, we have Wolverine issue number 1, the latest from the Ashes and New Beginning series. It says the legend begins anew in the Adamantium Tough new ongoing series. This is written by Saladin Ahmed, who did the previous run of Miles Morales, I believe. Which I wasn't a huge fan of that run, so that does give me a little pause here. I'll just go ahead and say that right here. And I wonder, I'm very curious to see how much this book ties into Uncanny X-Men. It says there's an old enemy reemerges as a new villain here, and that brings Logan to the brink of his berserker rage, which kind of gives me Sabretooth vibes. Maybe Sabretooth comes back as a new villain or something. I'm not sure. It says Nightcrawler is here, and he knows what his friend's capable of. So it sounds like he's going to try to tame him. And so, yeah, Nightcrawler we know is going to be an Uncanny X-Men. So I'm imagining it's going to have a heavy tie-in. We've seen the X books kind of referencing each other, so they are trying to keep this, the continuity straight in these books. So I'm curious to see how they handle that. Yeah, so I'm definitely going to give this one a shot, and I'm going to give this one a potentially good, and we'll see how that first issue goes. And finally, we have Avengers Assemble issue 1. This is written by Steve Orlando with art by Corey Smith. And we are going back to the Avengers Mansion. And basically, the Avengers are getting the Justice League Unlimited treatment, which is just to say the Avengers are going back basically to almost, so many characters are members of the Avengers and they're basically reserved. They're calling it something different here. This time it's called the Avengers Emergency Response Squad. But it's basically the same thing, right? It's like whatever Avengers they need for the mission, they're going to pull in. In this issue, I know we've got Captain America, Wasp, Photon, and Shang-Chi. But we also have Hawkeye, kind of, I assume because they're on the cover, Wonder Man and Hercules are going to be involved in other variant covers for this, as you've seen in the thumbnail for this video. Night Thrasher is also in the mix, so they're going to throw a lot of characters at us, some that haven't even been Avengers before, so that's pretty cool. This all comes out of Blood Hunt, where Captain America puts this team together because of the attack from the vampires and realizing that they need this team that can kind of combat threats that just pop up, hence the name Emergency Response Squad. So I thought that was a pretty cool concept. I'm a fan of Steve Orlando's writing. I think he's done a phenomenal job with Scarlet Witch. So I'm kind of stoked for this. I think it's going to be good. I love seeing, I love books that like do that with characters where they pull out the right characters for missions. It's like the G.I. Joe formula, the Transformers formula, the Justice League formula, and now we've got it with Avengers Assemble. I think it's a strong concept, and I'm going to give this one a promisingly good. And hopefully it is every bit as good as that, and every arc or every story, every mission they go on is going to be a fun one to see, and hopefully it's like big stuff. I'm hoping that it is a mini series, so obviously it's not going to be like every issue is going to be a different mission or whatever, that kind of thing. So I'm curious to see what emergency they go after, and where, if this is just a 5-issue miniseries, where does this team go after that? Like, are we going to get another Avengers book where some of these are going to pop up, or what's going to happen with this? I'm very curious to see how this plays out. And that's it. That's all the books I have to talk about So I'll just share a few other anticipated that aren't first with you, and then I will let you go to enjoy the rest of your weekend. So first up, we have Green Lantern issue number 15, Absolute War tie-in. Is it Absolute War? Absolute Power. I don't know where I said war for. Absolute Power tie-in. And I think Green Lantern steals the Batmobile or Batwing or something. I think it's the Batwing. Reading the description to find out what it was. Batplane. Sorry, Batplane. Batwing's a character. Batplane. Um, for a mission, and he's totally got permission. It says it's kind of cheeky that way, and so yeah, Green Lantern's been a solid book, solid series, and you know, Absolute Power has been a really good event as well. So looking forward to that. Deadweight's issue number 6 is the final issue of the series. Kind of sad to see it go. I've had fun with it. We get to learn the answer whether these two henchmen, these former henchmen, can find a life afterwards. And so, yeah, we'll see how it all wraps up. The Domain issue number 3 is the next one. I have really been enjoying this series so far. We've got these 3 characters that are sharing this power that came from an alien that's spinning right out of public domain. Really good series. Uncanny X-Men number 2 referenced it earlier in the episode. We got a cliffhanger at the end of issue 1 where these new characters came out of the forest, the Outliers, and we're going to see what they're all about in the next issue. Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles issue 2. The first issue was all about Raphael and Gel, and this one focuses on Michelangelo as he's living in Tokyo and becoming a TV star. So the first issue was really good. Can't wait to read the second one. And then finally, Transformers issue number 12, which is the end of the second story arc. And we'll see what the fate is of 2 worlds, Cybertron and Earth. And we'll see where that leaves things going forward. So yeah, that is it. Thank you for bearing with me. I'm a little bit under the weather today. Actually, I'm recording this Thursday night, and I usually record it Friday morning, but I'm going out of town this weekend as well for a craft show with my wife, setting up the crochet plushies for Loops and Scoops. And I got sick this morning, so I struggled, and I was like, I started to do it this morning, and then I'm like, nah, and I waited to try to feel better, and I just didn't feel better, and I'm like really exhausted. My voice was actually going out. I had to pause the recording and kind of, drink some liquid and get that, nice and lubricated so I could finish the show without sounding like I'm chewing gravel. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed the show. I know it was kind of a smaller show and not a lot of big books out this week, but still good content. I've still got to decide. Thank you for everybody that's voted in the polls. I've still got to decide whether I celebrate next episode at 52 instead, or do both. Do something, a little something. That's kind of what I'm thinking. I'll do a little something for the 50th episode next week. And then in 3 weeks, do like a big celebration and whatever the idea is, whether it's a live stream, etc., whatever it is. I'll save that for 52. So stay tuned for whatever that is. But if you did like this, you like the content, you like the show, please give it a thumbs up, give it that like. It does help the show, and when I see that, when I go on and see the likes on the video, it does, it makes me happy. How it is. We all like positive reinforcement, right? But also, you can hit that subscribe and notification bell so you don't miss any of the content going up on this channel. You can follow me across social media at Only Good Comics, and of course, you can type in onlygoodcomics.com to take you right back to this YouTube channel where we talk about only good comics. Until next time, thanks for watching. Take care, keep reading those comics, and I'll see you soon.